Okay, well, welcome everybody, and thank you very much for coming to today's information session about realising your leadership aspirations in 2021. My name's Claire Braund. I'm the Executive Director of Women on Boards. And just before I start, I'd like to pay my respects and the respects of all of us on this call to the traditional owners on the lands on which we all join today. One of the really nice things I've found about COVID is, in fact, we're all standing on different Aboriginal lands. So it's kind of nice that we can actually have that lovely sort of melding pot. So, of course, we acknowledge and pay our respects to elders past, present and future of our Indigenous peoples. So I've also got on this call Angela, who's going to wave, who's in the WOB office. So she's the super admin behind this, who scored the highest rating from the CPA program, possibly because she was so much more efficient, well, certainly than I was, but then the rest of us. So if anyone's at all worried about any of the admin or homework or any of the communication, it scored pretty much full marks. So that should be great for everybody to know. So the admin is really well supported. We've also got Sheena Wilson on the call, who's the co-presenter on this. And I'm just going to unmute Sheena and ask her just to give a little intro. Sheena's really the other co-host on the Women in Leadership program.
Thank you very much, Claire. Welcome everybody, and it's a real pleasure to join you. I'm a non-executive director, a management consultant, an executive coach, and also a business founder. And my exec career pre-portfolio life, which I've been in for the last 7 years or so, involved a combination of HR roles, general management roles, to country senior CEO level operations management and management consulting. And much of that work was internationally, living in the USA, the UK, Europe and Southeast Asia. In a portfolio capacity over the last few years, I am deputy chair of a large professional services firm, and on the nominations committee as another example for a high profile national sporting body. So bit of diversity there. I consult and coach in the private sector across a range of industries, and also in the NGO, NFP and higher education space, locally as well as internationally. But I have to say, many of my most favourite experiences in recent years have been working as a mentor for Women on Boards, as an advisor and presenter for WOB's public and in-house development programs, and as an integral part of this particular program. And my purpose in life is very simple. It's to help others succeed. So I am super excited to see this program go public with today's launch. Thanks, Claire.
Thanks very much, Sheena. And yes, Sheena is an integral part of this, and much of the intellectual powerhouse behind what we are doing on this program with the experience. You'll also see we've got Catherine Brown on the call, and I won't get Catherine to unmute, but Catherine's a great example of one of the mentors and coaches that we have as part of this program. So it's all at a very high level. Catherine's had a very senior career in HR, both in corporate, but then of course working with Melbourne University at the top level. So we do have a really excellent cohort. A bit about my background. I founded WOB, which some of you probably know. My background is actually marketing and PR, small business, family business, and the non-profit space. I'm really good at making decisions and getting things done, and so I bring that to the program. I also do a lot of work with people on how they position and pitch themselves, CVs, and I work closely with Mariette in the space around the presentation. Mariette isn't on this call today, but she's the person who takes the presentation module. So we've got a broad cohort, and Ruth, who's not with us today as well, who's the other co-founder, she pops in from time to time, and she actually takes the lead on the board segment. So we've got really a broad group of people that we can rely on here. Okay, the purpose of the program, it's of course not all about jobs for the girls, although I did quite like that slide, so that's why I popped it there, but it is enable women to take charge of their personal career management in order to achieve leadership and board roles. And actually, I think you would broaden it out to say slightly, to achieve what they want to be able to achieve. It may be that people having done or been through the exercise go, you know what, I'm really comfortable sitting at middle management or senior management, or I'm really comfortable here, but what I want to actually do is branch out and do a role in a different type of organisation. I want to move to the non-profit sector, or I want to move to the government sector. So what it really helps you to do is to understand where you're at and where you want to go in a more purposeful and strategic way. Many roles come about through serendipity, and we often look back after 10 years and go, goodness me, am I still here? And so this is really about taking a far more purposeful, strategic and proactive approach to personal career management. And it's particularly important for women because, as we all know, unless we really get on top of it and move ourselves forward and put ourselves forward, it's quite difficult quite often to get traction. So what will the program do? Well, it's going to develop your communication, influencing and problem solving skills. It'll do that in a range of ways. It's quite practical. So we do have the presentation module, which literally has you on Zoom going, learning voice techniques, standing up, sitting down, moving, understanding what it is to present well to people, and also understanding how to do that. And we actually get people to package something to actually do that. There's quite a few outputs through this program, so it's not just something theoretical, it's something that you actually do. How you have influence. Well, quality presentation and the way you refine and hone that is one of those ways, but there's also, if you go in and you're organised, you're strategic, you're structured, you understand the conversation that you want to have and where you can take that conversation, that helps your influencing skills. And problem solving, it's always better to be a problem solver than a problem creator. Problem solving is something, again, there are tips and tricks around how you can deal with that. We're assuming you're all technically competent at what you do. Most people are, and yet we still focus much of our professional development on that technical competency space. You don't need to be a better deputy chair or a better senior associate or a better forensic psychiatrist. We're assuming that your industry and your organisation's already got that well in hand, but you do need to build your capability in the space around how to be strategic, how to elevate your thinking to that level where you're able to have influence. So all those years that you've spent developing those technical skills can be transferred and you can actually use them in the wider space. How do you develop your leadership capability? How do you work better within teams? How do you influence up and manage down? How do you do all of those things? One of the huge learnings that comes out of this, and we'll show you one of the outputs shortly, is critical personal career management skills. Things that everybody, when they do this course, says, oh my gosh, I wish somebody had told me this when I was in my 20s. And Sheena, who developed this particular tool, says herself, I wish somebody had given me this when I was in my 20s too. So it's got a lot behind it, and it's a really great tool to help you move forward. I think it's a refresh. I work on the Gregorian calendar, so I think this is the beginning of the new decade. We're not going to have that argument now. So I'm going to refresh. This is going to refresh you for the decade, and particularly after last year, which was tough. And I don't think it's going to get a whole lot easier. We're on top of COVID-ish, but I think it's going to change the game in so many industries and for so many people. And it's already changed the way we think about work and the way we are actually working. So what does that mean for us? So I think there's a bit of a stop and a bit of a reset. What does it comprise? Well, in a funny way, this actually came out of our old Next Gen program, which we used to run in corporates in Sydney. But we've moved this to virtual online learning, which is fabulous because I can see here we've got people from WA, people from Chile, people from Singapore, people from in Indonesia. So it's great to be able to welcome and broaden not just the locational cohort, but potentially the cultural cohort too for this program. Virtual online learning. It's 9 modules at 90 minutes. I say that, although the presentation module is slightly different, and I won't go into detail because you do all just pick 15-minute blocks to actually do your presenting in. It's got a maximum of 30 people on it. That's, we think, a much more manageable number for working with you directly. It's held weekly and it's held at the same time, which is really helpful, and it's all on the same day. It's all on a Tuesday. So it's Tuesday, 11 o'clock, and it just starts. If you miss one, you don't have to panic because everything is recorded. It's all uploaded. There's a really good training hub with access to additional materials and courses. And that's where Angela comes in. She totally connects you to all of that. Any issues, you can email her at any time, call her up at any time, and you can get straight on to that. So don't be at all worried if you think, oh, I have to miss a couple of sessions. A career planning tool, which I've alluded to before, which is built on throughout the program. So that runs across the course, which is your plan on a page, formatted, laminated, and mailed to you at the end of the program. Yes, we use good old-fashioned stamps, and you get something in your letterbox. Now, of course, you've got it digitally too, and that just goes without saying, but it's actually kind of nice to get something in the mail. It's like when an invitation to a wedding turns up or something. It's quite exciting these days because it's paper. So you actually do get an output, and it's something very tangible from the program. You also, as part of this, get one personal mentoring session with highly experienced and qualified mentors and coach, Sheena, Catherine and Gillian McPhee, who's Master Qualified Coach as well. So there's a 1-hour personal mentoring through this too, which is a great opportunity to be able to build on the program. So I'm going to get Sheena to kind of do this with me. This is just a quick look through some of the modules. The welcome and introduction is really our orientation, getting you started. We touch on some of the concepts there, but then really we start to look at key elements of career management. And Sheena, any comments on you know, just a bit of a high level overview of what we cover in that module too? You need to unmute if that's okay.
Sorry, Claire. Yes, I realise. Module 2, we talk through career elements of, or key elements of career management, and then very pragmatically what that means for each of us as individuals. We start the process of encouraging really critical career thinking, and specifically, and Claire's alluded to this, encourage taking a really strategic approach to personal career management going forward. And we'll talk a bit about the one-pager in a few minutes, Claire, so maybe I'll leave it at that. But yep. It's really yep. The process of in module 2 of, you know, starting to think about what career management, personal career management means to each of us.
And module 3 is always great fun because we bring our expert presenter, Mariette Roops-Donnelly, who always gets a huge rap. And it's challenging for some people, but it's incredibly rewarding seeing people step up to do those presentations, which of course happens in module 7 on what we call pitch day. And you sat in on it last time, Sheena, and it was fabulous to see some people overcoming that reticence and those nerves and the habits that they'd actually fallen into.
Yes, it was terrific. And I think also the opportunity to get pretty instantaneous feedback as well on you know, the presentation, you know, the good bits as well as, you know, a couple of areas for people to work on. It's terrific.
Yeah. And module 4, why is it important to understand the difference between strategic and being operational in the leadership world?
Well, I mean, and that's what this module is about, is, you know, sharing practical insights into ways we learn or are required to evolve or pivot from operational thinking and analysis to more strategic thinking and analysis as we move through our management leadership, and ultimately for some, not everybody, I recognise, board careers. So, you know, the opportunity with this module is, you know, learning from a panel of C-suite as well as board members, C-suite executives and board members, who are very happy to share their advice and personal reflections of how they've made those pivots as they, you know, move through their careers. It becomes particularly important at board level, but also at senior management levels as well.
And building your toolkit for the boardroom, which is the next module which Ruth takes the lead on, is also about how you report to boards, because in senior leadership roles you need to report to boards. In fact, in sort of senior management roles, depending on where you are. So we actually touch both sides. We actually touch the reporting to as well as serving on. Module 6, probably Sheena's favourite. We have an amazing panel that we put together for this, the values of coaches, mentors and sponsors, people who can really, really make a difference and get you through. And one of the things we've changed from the pilot program is we've actually added an hour of that to this program, because Sheena, you were finding that people were actually coming back with lots of questions following that particular module.
Yeah, we had lots of questions on this, and I think this is an opportunity to explore, performance management, which, a lot of people roll their eyes when you mention the two words, but done well. I mean, this is a huge opportunity for both the giver and the receiver of of information and advice. Coaching, mentoring, sponsorship, all of those are explored, and it's really good to listen to people that really understand how to do this well, again, from both sides of the table.
Mm-hmm. Then, of course, we have pitch day, which is the practical day where you actually pitch to a panel and give you instant feedback, so you can actually go away and work on that. We then look at the one piece of paper, which Sheena's going to talk to panel members that come in through that as well. I'm going to turn off my video for a second because it's just told me my internet connection is unstable. I am still here behind the WB sign, just so you know. Learning outcomes. Look, learning outcomes vary for everybody. This is just a list that we've put together, but people have reported many different learning outcomes. I'm always wary to put down prescriptive things the whole time because everybody's learning experience, of course, is really different. I think the big top one is how to employ and deploy critical career thinking. And I think that's that's a really huge thing out of here. And that in itself trickles down and changes the way that you actually do things. The other really big one is the big piece around self-awareness and the understanding about what's driving you, a deeper understanding around many areas around thinking and acting strategically, your leadership-related competencies, the value you bring to the organisation. A lot of people in the last program reported greater confidence in their capability. I think a greater awareness around what their capability was, because after years of doing it, they'd kind of almost not forgotten it, but assumed it as a given. And so people really were able to understand the value that they actually brought. Ownership of your own career narrative, again, back to the one piece of paper. How to broaden yourself out of your profession to various industry sectors and leadership roles. So kind of getting your thinking out of the narrow to the broad and managing up and reporting to boards. But Sheen, I'm just going to hand over to you, because this is back to the self-awareness thing, leading in to the My One page. This is, you're a great advocate of, the self-awareness is the greatest skill you can have, and the ability to articulate who we are and what we want to do next. So can you just unpack that for me slightly?
Sure. Well, look, I'd start by saying, just following on from what you've been talking about, Claire, that career management is the process through which we become aware of our interests, our strengths, and our opportunities for development, our aspirations, and so on. And from there, we choose our goals, we set them, we formulate strategies and action plans to achieve them. And in doing all of that and doing it well, it requires incredible self-awareness, critical thinking, and also a sense of purpose. And I've always said and truly believe that in terms of personal career management, the greatest skill we can have, as it says here, is self-awareness. And then the next most important is the ability to clearly articulate to others who we are and what we want to do next. And this is where what I think sets this program apart, because it's not just 9 modules of theory about career management. It's really helping us to unpack ourselves and communicate articulately. And why do we do that? Because if we can't do that, we can't clearly articulate to others who we are and where we've been and what it is we want to do next, we may inadvertently end up in somebody's too hard basket. People want to help us. That's my experience. People are flattered to be asked to help, but we have to give people something specific that they can work off and instantly make connections for us. Career management is no longer a once and done thing, as I'm sure we all know. In the current century, so forget the decade, but in the current century, we're very much more likely to go through several career transitions for any number of reasons. We change, the world changes, the economy changes, family reasons, or anything else we can come up with. Even where we choose a very, very specific career path via whatever studies or qualifications we have, there will always be opportunities for in-house transitions, cross-sector transitions, and so on, all of which require us to think about our careers. So the one pager, which we'll touch on in a second, is simply a tool, a very practical tool to enable us to think all of that through. And the one page project runs right through the program from module 1 to module 9, and you see a blank template here. It looks very simple, potentially innocuous enough, but once you start to think this through, it emerges as that critical thinking tool to help us become as articulate as we can possibly be about our goals going forward. Looks like 12 boxes on one page. It is, although ultimately you can, as you get to enjoy this tool, you can make it as creative as you like. But through the program and beyond, you can iterate and reiterate this, and will, I'm sure, several times until you're happy with it. So at the end, it becomes a visual encapsulation of who you are, what you're looking to do next, and what matters to you most as you make career choices. And here's an example, mine, which is I carry with me at all times. It's postcard size, it's laminated, and I'll talk about why we would do this and when we would use this. This is not a document that we build to share with others. It's not something we submit with a board or a new role, a new job application, but it's the most important part about the one pager is the deep thought process and iteration that sits behind completing each of the 12 boxes. And that in itself fosters self-awareness, clarity, and purpose. So it's a bit, for those of you that have worked on your organization strategy maps, similar process, except, you know, the project or the initiative or the mission, if you like, is you. I first built my one pager about 20 years ago. And I wish, as Claire said, that I'd figured it out a whole lot earlier than that. These days, I pull mine out probably at least 4 times a year and check for any adjustments, because, as we said, our goals do change for a variety of reasons. I also pull my one pager out, as Catherine can attest, every time I'm preparing for an interview, preparing any sort of submission or any other type of pitch where I'm required to do something to convey who I am and what value I can bring. And even in my former executive life, I used to pull my one pager out to help me prepare for performance reviews and career development conversations. So, and very, very useful. And it's amazing how pulling this out, you know, 5 minutes before you walk in to have a critical conversation at a key moment in your career, a quick glance before those key moments imprints magically all the important elements front of mind for instant recall when you need it most. It's also a great help when you're updating your profile, crafting CVs and bios, when you are making those important career decisions. And frankly, even just to pull out from time to time to give yourself a bit of a confidence boost. We all need that from time to time. I keep it, as I said, postcard size, laminated. It's easy to find. It slips easily into the front of my notebook or my handbag. And I constantly, as Claire knows, change the colors and designs and shape and form of my one pager, as it enables me to pretend that I have some hidden, untapped creative genius. So back to you, Claire.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Sheena. She's a great advocate for the one pager, and it does make a huge difference. It's an amazing process, and many people are now using it. But look, you've heard enough from us. I've actually invited 3 people on, if they can unmute themselves: Emily Luttrell, Linda Bennett, and Kate Ultridge. Now, they all have the great distinction of being CPAs, which are certified practicing accountants, for those of you who are not aware, because we did this program with the CPAs last year. So hence they had to be a CPA to be on it. But I just thought I'd bring Emily, Linda, and Kate come in from different backgrounds. And I just thought I'd ask them to talk about why they did the program, their experience on it, the benefits, and the practical outcomes. So, Emily, I'm going to kick off with you. If you can unmute there.
Yep, unmuted.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, how are you? Speak again.
Good. Yes,
okay.
We can hear you. Can you hear?
I can hear you, yes, yes.
Yeah, you've got a funny sort of microphone-y thing going on a bit, but apart from that,
must apologise.
Kind of, yeah, it's just a bit of a head sort of. Yes, that's better.
Better. Okay, a little bit closer. Okay, easy. So for me, I joined the program. I found it quite by accident, and I viewed it as an opportunity that I'd been involved with finance and IT for many years, but then I moved on to working in a family company that I founded, and sort of been out of the mainstream employment profile for a while. So it was an opportunity for me to regroup and actually review what I've done and figure out what experience I've had and how that transfers back into the workforce. Because I actually had to move myself back into the regular workforce. So it was a confidence building thing, actually. So that's probably why I chose to, do the program. I found it very practical, as you have said. I look forward to each week because it allowed me to actually be involved with a great group of 40 women from such different and diverse backgrounds. So we all had something different to share. And so it was interesting learning about those different experiences just in how it would relate to us. Often it made you think outside of what you were thinking. I think probably the key thing for me was a conversation I had with you, Claire, when you were prompting me and asking me about where I've come from and what I've done. We figured out that I had actually, my last 3 roles involved coming into businesses, identifying what they do, figuring out how they can do things better, determining how to make changes, and then, carrying out those changes. And for me, you saying that it was my sweet spot, it was a real moment in that I identified that is actually what I'm pretty good at, and I have a value there to offer others. That forwarded on to a realisation that I was able to, that transfers across the boards. It's often coming in from the outside with a different perspective and allowing yourself to be creative and find solutions in that strategic level, as you mentioned. And that's where I found going forward, that's where I want to sit.
Lovely. Thank you for that. And I'm glad the conversation worked out well for you. It's the aha moment. I always say, so tell me who you are and I'll tell you who you really are. Because you're always twice the person, quite honestly, that you often sort of say you are. So thanks for that, for sharing that, Emily. Kate, do you want to share?
Hi. Yes, the reason I started looking into leadership courses, I was finding in the accounting firms that I've been working in, there wasn't many mentors or role models, particularly in my line managers, and the leadership roles at these firms didn't really have any mentors either. So I started looking around, and again, same thing. I found this one by accident, actually, and I was hoping to find sort of the strategic thinking side of things, and the career management was the reason I headed towards this one as opposed to others. The experience with the program, I really enjoyed the program, definitely got a lot out of it. The presenters and the facilitators were all fantastic. Each of the modules was really clear and concise, and I felt that I'd learned something from each week. I actually was looking forward to the following week with it, which was great. It was definitely great to hear from other female CPAs specifically, just around their experiences and It was great to hear them sharing how they dealt with certain things in the workplace and management and their leaders. I've definitely got an increased understanding around strategic management now and what's expected of somebody on a board, looking at board roles at the moment. So hopefully one of those is going to come up soon. And I've also realised that the skills that I gained working in public practice are actually transferable, which I didn't think they were previously. So I've now sort of gained that confidence to move my career into another sector. How did I benefit? I think the biggest thing was just the increased confidence and awareness in myself and my abilities. I think I've now got a deeper understanding of where I want to move my career. Doing the one-pager exercise, actually, initially I didn't really know what it was all about, to be honest. And as the modules moved forward, I definitely got a greater clarity of where I wanted to go in my career and the skills and attributes that I actually had that could help potential employers. So out of all this, I gained the confidence to apply for a role that wasn't within public practice. So I've now, starting on Monday, actually, moving into a not-for-profit part-time role, which I'm also focusing on my own business as well. So it's giving me the confidence to move and try something different. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Kate, and thank you for the clear outline of and the fact that you like to seeing us every week. The interesting thing about this program, we like seeing you too. The interesting thing about this particular program is we had with the CPAs, because it was an arrangement with the organisation, we had 40 on each program. Most weeks we had 34, 35 people on. And in fact, we had almost no drop-off at all. It was phenomenal. So people were actually logging in to talk to and listen to people. And Linda, that was your experience too, because I don't think you missed one either.
No, I loved it. I loved it. Can you hear me okay? Excellent. So my reason for doing the program was because I really needed to do something positive in 2020. I mean, it was a pretty shocking year for lots of people, and when I saw the course content, it just looked super interesting for me. I also did the program to build my network, which is now my key professional goal for this coming year. My experience, the quality and caliber of the presenters and the WOB team just blew me away, actually. You know, sometimes when you do courses and there's one or two fab presenters and the rest are a bit so-so, not this course. All the presenters were excellent and I gained a lot from all of them. I benefited from a dedicated hour of me time. I spend a lot of time developing and working with other people, and it was really good to have the time to develop me. From a practical point of view, I've also joined the Advisory Board Centre alongside having done this course. And I'm quite clear now about pursuing advisory board and committee roles as opposed to director roles. And the course really helped me nail that. I think the key thing that I took away was to tell people who you are and what you want. And my favourite parts of the course were pitch day. I really like doing pitch day. Working out what my purpose is, which is quite deep, and it's an interesting thing to work on and ponder. And of course, the one pager, which I have right here. And working up the one pager, particularly bouncing ideas off others. So it's not just something that you have to do all by yourself. I think it's really good to move through the boxes on the one pager and talk to someone that you trust, whether it's a work colleague or a family member or one of the WOB team.
Thank you. That's lovely testimonials. We didn't prompt any of these guys. In my usual fashion, I sent them all a quick note and said, can you all just talk about your experience on the course? And the three of them went, yes, sure. You nailed pitch day totally, can I say, Linda? Linda's one of those people that prepares and prepares and prepares, and man, she prepared. So It was really well done. It was actually fascinating to watch that. Any questions? I've been having a little chat here with Jennifer, which is a private chat, but you're very welcome to pop in any questions, or even to just let me know via popping your hand up that you want to unmute to ask. I'll just in the meantime pop up what the dates are, so you've got all of those as well. I think I've just got them there. Just let me jump out of a couple of windows here so I can see what's going on as well. Yes, so it kicks off on Tuesday, 16th of March. We do break, of course, over Easter. Normally we run it consecutively, but of course Easter and school holidays are particularly busy. So there is that break there. And then we pretty much run it back to back the whole way through. Your hour of mentoring is up to you to organise in conjunction with your mentors. We obviously set the whole process up. We actually have a Calendly which you can book times and do all of those things as well. But that is the relationship between you and the person who's talking with you, not necessarily between WOB. Not getting any other. So that's the dates. That's the fee. $250. That includes the mentoring session as well, all materials, all 9 modules, and it is best if you're a member of WOB. The reason being is if we're going to help you to be part of our network, then it really works best to be a member. Is this a program for aspiring directors? Not particularly. It's for those aspiring to leadership roles. Now, those leadership roles might include board roles. We do put the board element in because it's important for you to start to think strategically about how you work to boards, but also then that you might serve them. And as Linda mentioned, it actually bridged both sides. She got learning from the point of view of thinking about leading a team, but then also how you work and serve on a board, or even work and serve to a board. Yes, the program's going to be offered in Q2. Angela's still there. Are you still there, Angela? She did have to go to Sydney, but I think we're going to offer it in the second half of the financial year as well, possibly Q3 and 4. And that's correct, isn't it? Hi.
That's correct. That's correct. It'll also be offered in Q3.
Yeah. So, and you thinking what, a July type kickoff date after the holidays?
I think so, yes.
Sometime we're looking. Yeah, yeah. So that, if that helps that. Are we open to men? Yes, we're open to men. That is fine. You are welcome to join us. Sister's phone, who I know who it is, it's not at all. Yes, we are open to men if you'd like to join. It is focused on females, but we've never excluded men. One of the most favourite men was the man who was a Congolese copper miner who came to one of our very early Women on Boards courses because he had a daughter, and his daughter's name was Claire, funnily enough, and he wanted to know what she was going to experience in her life. But in saying that, he learnt so much about working on boards that I think he's gone on to become, you know, quite a reasonable board member, because he was back from Zimbabwe, or I think it was Zambia or somewhere like that. So yes. What's the homework commitment like? I'm going to ask one of our members to answer that. Emily, the homework commitment?
It wasn't too bad, actually. Some weeks you had to listen to some podcasts, some, you know, various things like that. Very little, probably maybe half an hour, could be longer if you wanted to. Generally, there was some homework that was set that was advised, and then there was usually some additional things you could do. So it wasn't overwhelming at all.
Okay, great. Is that the experience for Kate and Linda as well? Any comments from either of you two? Yep, yep. So Linda, you didn't find it overwhelming, because there was some that was optional and some that was sort of required, yeah?
No, I think the half an hour a week is probably spot on. I think the thing that's great is it's all in a hub. So if you miss it one week, you can always go back and catch up if you've got a bit of extra time. So that's always good too. Yep,
great. Thank you for that. So that answers that question. Any other questions popping in? That was the cost question that I just popped onto there, and I've just got to get back onto my slides because I'm onto other things as now. So that's just where you can find it. Any other questions for people before we go? Sheena, any final words from you?
No, look, you know, obviously I'm biased. I think it's a great program, and it's fabulous to hear Emily, Linda and Kate sort of remind us of their experiences. I just want to come back to one of the questions that was just asked. You know, is this targeted at, you know, aspiring board members? I would say there's not a single element of this program or module that's not as valuable for people, you know, that may, you know, that in their management and leadership careers. you know, even valuable for, you know, people that actually prefer to be individual contributors. I think it's broad ranging. You know, the one pager as one example, you know, it's something, it's a tool that people can use for life. Mariette's presentation skills for life. You know, there's so many skills for life. And yes, there is, you know, there is a module in certain elements where you're talking specifically about boards, but I think that's really valuable stuff for people working in any organization, because there are always opportunities for people to, as an adjunct to what they're doing, put their hand up for committees or working parties or that sort of thing. So I would seek to encourage people to, you know, consider this program, whether they have never thought about a board in their life, or they think it might be something that's a long way off or near term. It doesn't matter. So
thanks, Sheena. A couple of questions here. Can you tell us about the scholarships? I can, but I've temporarily forgotten. One is from rural. I've got to jump out into another screen. Ange, are you there? Because you're my backup on all of this stuff that you could tell me about these things in relation to. Yes, there are a couple of scholarships. It's a lot more material available on the site. Ange, are you still there, or have you had to
Yes,
go?
I am. Sorry, I missed the question, Claire.
Scholarships. Can you just read out the criteria? One's for someone working in a non-profit, and I think the other one, did we choose rural or regional person
Rural
as
or regional
well?
is
But there
correct.
Yeah, so somebody from rural or regional working in a true rural or regional sense, and someone working in a non-profit, not necessarily serving on the board of a non-profit, but working in the non-profit space. The reason we do that is we've always offered scholarships on our programs. Non-profits don't pay at the same rate as corporates and everyone else, so it's often more difficult to get professional development.
Actually, Claire, sorry, it was culturally diverse. Sorry, I'm stuck on that one. It was cultural diverse women, not rural.
Sorry, culturally diverse women, not rural women. I beg your pardon. Mainly because this was a virtual program, which doesn't exclude rural women in any way who are culturally diverse. So that's absolutely fine. We're trying to do more in the space around cultural diversity with our working group and other things. So there you go. But there's some criteria there, and it's not onerous to apply. There's nothing worse than having onerous things to apply to. You basically have to put your CV in and just do a quick covering note, and there's the details there. Okay, any other questions before I thank you all? You can see Angela will follow up with you with an email, so you will get an email out. We do want registrations in fairly quickly. People are already starting to join the course. I get a sense a number of you were waiting until this webinar just to find out a bit more. Any questions, the follow-up email will have an email address, and they will come directly to myself or to Sheena or to someone on the team, and we'll be able to answer those. If you've got something that you want to ask, or if you want to call and have a chat, you can again reply to that, and I'm happy to take an offline call to you just to have a private conversation if you didn't want it to be a public conversation. If you have any disabilities as well, we cater for those too. Sorry, Angela sent an email tomorrow because she's got a duck to Sydney. Any disabilities, we try to cater as well there. We worked with Accessible Arts last year to support people with disabilities. So for much of the program, if we do have anybody with vision impairment or hearing impairment or any of those things, or somebody who's got speech impediment or having any difficulties, you just have to let us know, and we absolutely work with that and include you as part of the cohort. So absolutely no problems there if you are at all concerned about any of those elements. Delighted to have you along. So with that, I'm going to say thank you to Linda and to Kate and to Emily for turning up and for being such wonderful testimonials, unplanned, as to all of the things that they wanted to say. Thank you to Sheena. Thank you to Angela. And as I said, please do stay in touch, and we look forward to seeing you all on the public program for Women in Leadership. Thanks, and bye-bye.